As I mentioned, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or any questions that you may in fact have. And please stay with us. Our Reading the Buffalo News is going to be coming up in just a moment.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella, starting with the weather report. Increasing cloudiness today, a high of 75. Cloudy tonight with a couple of showers late, a low of 60. A thunderstorm in parts of the area tomorrow afternoon. Thunderstorms can bring localized damaging wind gusts, a high of 72 and a low of 62. For Friday, a brief shower or two, a high of 74, low of 58. For Saturday, a brief shower or two, a high of 78, low of 59. For Sunday, sunshine and a few clouds, high of 80, low of 62. Monday, time of clouds and sun, high of 84, low of 67. And for Tuesday, strong morning thunderstorms, a high of 85, a low of 68. Pollen count today is low. And sunrise today was at 5:38 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8:58 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Awe-inspiring Highmark Stadium is an upgrade in every way imaginable. Pegula says stadium will honor wife's vision. While thinking of the thousands of people who turned his vision of a state-of-the-art football stadium into Orchard Park, the largest construction project in the region's history, Terry Pegula's voice began to tremble. The billionaire owner of Buffalo's 3 professional sports franchises fought back tears. His thoughts shifted from the stakeholders who supported the Bills' $2.1 billion stadium to his wife, Kim, who spearheaded the project until she went into cardiac arrest in June 2022, a health emergency from which she is still recovering. Kim, I wish you could have finished this project with the same passion and hard work that you started it with, said Pegula. With the 60,108-seat stadium standing behind him, Kim Pegula was not among the hundreds who attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony Tuesday on the new Highmark Stadium's north side. Her contributions were noted, however, each time a politician spoke on the makeshift stage. Mary Wilson, widow of Bills founder Ralph Wilson, recalled a conversation more than a decade earlier when Kim Pegula expressed enthusiasm for Terry, suggesting the couple purchase the region's beloved NFL franchise. As soon as she was sworn into office in August 2021, Governor Kathy Hochul called Kim Pegula. The Pegula family had grown frustrated by former Governor Andrew Cuomo's inaction over a new lease for the Bills. Together, Hochul and Erie County officials completed a 30-year lease agreement. The milestone was reached nearly 3 months before Kim was hospitalized. Admittedly, Terry was not sure if the new stadium would be completed by now. But Tuesday, on a serene 77-degree morning, fireworks launched behind the stage as Terry Pegula cut the ribbon alongside Hochul, Wilson, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, Bills President of Business Operations Pete Gwelly, and Highmark Chief Executive Officer David Holmberg. Pegula said he wished his wife's health would have allowed her to sustain the same level of input and passion that she began the project with. Unfortunately, the last 4 years have been pretty tough for myself and my family, Pegula said in an interview. But Kim is doing better every week. We keep praying for her. It's hard for me to tell you what she would think about this because of her condition, he said. The final product reflects the vision Terry and Kim Pegula developed with the help of Populous, an architectural design firm, and Gilbane Turner, a joint construction venture. Throughout his decades as an oil and gas mogul, Terry Pegula has opted to wait to enter a construction site until the project is complete. The Bills owner received updates through the process, which began June 5, 2023, with a groundbreaking ceremony, but it wasn't until recently that Pegula walked through the wide concourses that will fill up with Bills fans when the regular season game happens September 17th. During the planning process, Pegula visited stadiums across the globe to collect ideas. On a walkthrough tour of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, Pegula asked to see the 3 worst vantage points in the 62,850 seat buildings. None of the 3 had an obstructed view. Terry turned to Scott Radicek, Global Director of Populous, and asked, "Can you build me one of these?" On a recent tour of his site at the Bills' new stadium, Pegula noticed a set of doors with thick paneling. He joked, "I finally found a seat with an obstructed view, and it's in our suite." At the time of his global stadium tours, Buffalo's football mecca was crumbling. The original Highmark Stadium opened in 1973. Repairs extended its life, but time was running out. The Bills needed a new home. No area of the beloved stadium on Abbott Road illustrated Pegula's point more than the premium seat, which fell short of modern standards for the NFL. There's no such problem at the new Highmark Stadium. The M&T Bank Lounge is a communal space shared by suite and top-end club ticket holders. The Founders Club has prime sideline views. The 716 Club has enhanced amenities. The Field Club features a massive bar with a view of the players as they walk from their locker room to the field. The stadium has 1,755 suite/loge seats and 4,500 club seats, but it also caters to the everyday fan. 2 1,600 square foot food and beverage markets sit near the northeastern and northwestern entries. A 360-degree canopy covers more than 60% of the seating bowl. There is also the self-described world's largest stadium now snow melt system, which uses roof sensors to monitor and melt. The scoreboards are big enough to match modern-day stadiums, but not too big to distract. Heat lamps hanging above concession tables around the main concourse, allowing fans to see the field while eating. The fans were also part of Pegula's speech. The project would not have been completed without the $263 million raised through the sale of personal seat licenses. Taxpayers contributed $850 million, with the state assuming ownership and contributing $600 million. Erie County, which owned the old stadium, added $250 million. The Pegulas were responsible for the rest, as well as cost overruns. "To me, all the seats in here are good," Pegula said. "It means a lot to me that our fans, you can show them pictures, you can show them videos and mock suites and seats and all that, but when they walk in here, their jaw is going to drop because it's so impressive." The stadium honors the region's history and also highlights the construction workers who toiled away to complete the project in time for the 2026 season. On the main entrance, in the middle of a glass wall, a sign reads, "We built this house." On both sides, the bills include the names of the 5,369 construction workers who worked during bitter winter months and humid summer days. Inside the stadium, between sections 123 and 124, hangs another sign, "Built for Buffalo." Wearing construction hats and neon vests, workers stood behind the 15 rows of foldable chairs as Pegula addressed the crowd. He pointed toward them and said, "Thank you," before referring to them as heroes. Their names, he added, belong on the building as much as the gridiron stars for whom the Bills became known. They labored for approximately 5 million hours. More than 2 years ago, Pegula hired Gwelly to help ownership complete the stadium project. Someone needed to carry on Kim's work. There was confusion around personal seat licenses. Another leader had to be involved in meetings to ensure the project was on time and met expectations. On Tuesday, Gwelly stood next to Terry and Kim's youngest son, Matthew, as dignitaries and alumni, including Jim Kelly, walked around the concourse. Kim wasn't able to participate at the level she had in the past, and she was unbelievably dynamic leader and started this whole process, Gwelly said. "You can't replace that. You can't replace an owner that was as involved as she was. They still talk about the contributions that she makes at these meetings. The impact she had is immeasurable, so I think having somebody come in and carry on that way. How do you continue to execute on her vision? It's kind of emotional to think about that, to be the person that's charged with trying to carry on her legacy. That was the biggest part. How do we make sure that what the vision was for this from Terry and Kim was actually coming to fruition and happens? It was everything." After the 45-minute ceremony, Terry Pegula walked alongside Hochul toward the lower seating bowl. They gawked at the red and blue gradient seating while the photographers and videographers captured the moment. Thick smoke from the fireworks hung in the air. Minor projects are still on the punch list before the Bills host their first event, the annual return of the Red and Blue Intra-Squad practice. The natural glass playing surface installed to meet players' preferences is ready. To summarize his expectations for the first regular season game, a matchup with the Detroit Lions on a Thursday night, Pegula said it's going to be special. The night will be emotional, too, because of the presence of his wife, Kim. Linda?
Thank you, Thank you, Larry. And another front page article on Highmark Stadium. Bills fans can expect an elevated experience. When Bills fans walk into the new Highmark Stadium, it won't be like anything they've ever seen before at a Buffalo football stadium in so many ways. Whether it's the canopy that will cover around 60% of fans, the huge and open concourses with radiant heating, a sound system that uses 32 hanging speakers throughout the stadium, the steep verticality of the stacked seating sections, or the plush grass field, Bills fans are in for a very different experience. The scale and scope of the 60,000-seat open-air stadium are radically different, and the spaces have been built to be more conducive to fans coming in and being part of the atmosphere. Fans will be able to enjoy the sort of amenities that were not part of the old building, now being torn down across the street on Abbott Road. It may not have all the bells and whistles of some of the new stadiums, but it will certainly elevate the experience on game days and for other sorts of other sporting events and contests at the more than $2 billion building. Pete Guelli, president of the business operations, said every time he steps into the building, he notices something else that is awe-inspiring. The Bills celebrated being on the verge of project completion on Tuesday with a ribbon cutting in front of the new Orchard Park Stadium. It's hard to put into words how spectacular this stadium is and how it's a world-class facility, and in Buffalo, Guelli said, it's such a stark contrast from what the old building was like. It's an upgrade in every way imaginable. To see a stadium like this that our owners, the team, and fans deserve, it's inspiring and an exciting time for Buffalo. The stadium was built to rise upward about 120 feet in the air, which is double the height of the old stadium. So it makes for seats that are much closer to and more on top of the action. The stacked sections are meant to create a compact seating bowl where even the last row of the stadium has a great view. It's modeled after Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. That's what we tried to bring to Buffalo, the intimacy of a seating bowl that brings the fans as close to and on top of the field as possible, which creates that intimidation, said Scott Radicic, a former NFL player who's a founding partner and global director of Populous. When this sound system is playing and you've got 60,000 people all cheering, that emotion and energy won't be replicated anywhere in the NFL, he added. The stadium's verticality allows for the canopy to cover more fans. The 360-degree canopy should cover over 60% of fans in attendance and features the world's largest snow melt system. The sound canopy also includes 32 speaker arrays on the canopy. The open concourse allows fans to walk into the stadium and be able to see, feel, and hear the energy and action around the entire stadium. The vestibules closed off to the game action that fans may have gotten caught in the old stadium are gone, said Frank Gravata, a senior vice president of the new stadium design. The team will be going from having turf to a natural grass field. The team decided on a natural grass field in the stadium after playing on artificial turf since moving to Orchard Park in 1973. Hydronic heating and grow lights will help maintain the grass throughout the year. There will also be a bright blue or red seat awaiting every fan at the new stadium, a far cry from the bleacher benches that were prevalent around the old building. The exterior of the building is designed to combat the wind using a perforated metal exterior that redirects the wind flow and prevents it from coming in, unlike at the old stadium where wind was constantly a factor in games. Stadium design firm Populous had a team of engineers study the western New York winds to help manage the airflows around the building, according to Jonathan Malley, global director and the managing director of Populous for the Americas. Outside the stadium, Family Circle is to become a year-round gathering plaza and main entryway that the team has never had in the past. The Bills have put a major dent in Family Circle, which they think will become a tourist and visitor attraction, with 3 massive bison going in now, along with benches, a walkway, and a Bills Legends wall. What an Instagrammable moment it creates for the fan base, Malley said. What an amazing thing to approach, and you can imagine all the people taking pictures with their families. There will be extra space in the team's new parking lots for tailgating. The parking lots also lead to a flatter and more seamless entryway into the building. I love some of the moves our designers made to bring people to the building and have that approach that you really didn't have at the old stadium, Radicic said. You had to play a little bit of Frogger, moving through cars and dodging your way around before, but here there is deliberate ways to come into the stadium. There also will be 46 places around the building that, for the first time, feature local public art and murals, helping make the building feel more like home, Malley said. Additionally, the building also offers amenities to host large gatherings in the likes of the Suite Atrium or M&T Lounge, Founders Club, and East Club. Meetings, conferences, corporate events, and weddings can all be held in these spaces. It will help the stadium be open as many days of the year as possible. Guelli also wants the stadium in the mix for hosting the big NFL events like the Draft, NHL Stadium Series games, and big musical acts starting next summer. We want this stadium to be open as much as it can be from a year-round perspective, Guelli said. Football is the first priority, which is why you're not seeing events here this summer. We wanted to make sure that when the team steps onto the field for the first time, it is ready for them. But as we get into the spring and summer of next year, we are expecting to have a lot more events here. Guelli said the team has a number of soft events planned to get PSL holders and team sponsors into the building over the next 2 months, but he would not reveal what they would be yet. The return of the blue and red practice should be the first time that all season ticket holders and the general public will be in the building. Ticketing information has not been released yet for the August 8th, 9th night practice. Guelli is also glad the Bills have 2 preseason games this season, both in August, to get people into the building to test it out. The team will soon also announce more information on available stadium tours. We're looking for more ways to get people in here, Guelli said. We want everyone to be able to share in this experience. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Regarding the European heat wave, dozens drowned seeking relief. Authorities warn against swimming in dangerous waterways. Paris. 40 people drowned in France over recent days as they sought to cool down to escape record heat, the Prime Minister said Tuesday as a heat wave swept across much of Europe. Britain, Italy, Switzerland, and Spain also sweltered in extreme heat, with record temperatures in some areas disrupting schools and transport networks and forcing tourist sites, including the Eiffel Tower, to shut. Europe is warming at more than twice the global average, according to the World Meteorological Organization, making such prolonged heat episodes increasingly likely. France experienced its hottest day on record Tuesday, Meteo France forecaster said, with a peak of almost 112 degrees in one town in the southwest. Across the country, people have been jumping into canals and rivers to cool off. Sports Minister Marina Ferrari said she understood the urge to escape the heat, but warned against swimming in unauthorized or dangerous areas. Speaking ahead of an emergency meeting on the heat wave, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu called the drownings a sad scourge and said there were 40 deaths since Tuesday, most of them young people. On Monday, first responders were unable to resuscitate 2 children, ages 2 and 4, who were found unconscious by their mother in the family car outside their home, said a prosecutor in Carpentras, southeast France. The heat wave is being driven by a weather pattern known as an omega block, with a bulge of hot air trapped between cooler systems, allowing temperatures to build day after day. Heat waves and storms are being intensified by climate change. Meteo France said conditions were comparable to the August 2003 heat wave, which lasted 16 days and led to an estimated 80,000 excess deaths across Europe. It's uncertain how long the current episode will last. Thursday will once again be a sweltering day in France, with temperatures remaining just as high. On Friday, a gradual drop is expected to begin from the Atlantic coast, the weather forecaster said. Heat waves can affect people's physical and mental health, but also force businesses to adapt and put grain harvests at risk. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:20. Today in history, Wednesday, June 24th. 1922, the National Football League became the new name for the former American Professional Football Association. Owners of over 20 teams met in Cleveland, where they also banned active college players from NFL teams. In 1949, NBC aired the first Western TV show, Hopalong Cassidy, which featured actor William Boyd as Cassidy. In 1989, Garth Brooks made his Grand Ole Opry debut about 2 months after the release of his self-titled first album. A year later, singer-comedian Johnny Russell inducted him into the Opry. In 2007, Iraqi General Ali Hassan Almeida, aka Chemical Ali, received his first death sentence for genocidal crimes against humanity that included the use of chemical weapons. In 2021, nearly 100 people died when a 12-story condominium tower collapsed in Surfside, Florida, one of the worst building disasters in U.S. history. In 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey with its ruling in the case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which stripped federal protections by concluding the Constitution doesn't grant abortion rights and returned the regulation of the procedure to elected leaders. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial. Keep store shelves fair. Hochul should sign law that protects New Yorkers from predatory pricing. As high prices continue to strain family budgets, there's no need for retailers to pile on with unfair schemes that set different prices for different customers. In New York, legislation has been passed that would prevent this practice known as surveillance pricing. It should be signed by Governor Kathy Hochul. The One Fair Price Act would ban algorithmic pricing based on consumers' individual buying habits. Retail pricing is already becoming more oblique as stores turn to digital shelf labels that can be easily adjusted up or down at any time. As reported by the news, Sandra Tan, a local Walmart, has begun abandoning fixed price displays and vanquished traditional price tags on clothing. Instead, static signs that were once commonplace have been placed or will be replaced with digital shelf tag labels that can be changed via an app. Walmart officials explain the reasoning for digital shelf labels, which it intends to employ across 2,300 stores by the end of the year. Digital shelf labels are intended to make it easier for staff to manage it and inventory the 120,000 products it keeps on its shelves. The digital labels can also light up to make it easier for staff to flag items that need to be restocked or picked up for consumers. This system efficiently communicates updated prices, promotions, and inventory information instantly across thousands of products. However, the same systems that make pricing more flexible also make it easier to adjust prices at scale in ways that are less visible to shoppers. It should be noted that other local retailers, such as Kohl's, have been using digital pricing labels for years. But electronic shelf labels enable quick in-store price changes so that one shopper could buy a gallon of milk at one price while another shopper would pay more for the same gallon later that day. Online retailers have a particular advantage as they can track customers' buying habits and use personalized pricing, which means potentially charging more to those consumers who have a demonstrated willingness to spend. Thus far, no local physical stores are known to have employed personal pricing, nor has the technology reached anything close to the 2002 Tom Cruise movie Minority Report, in which holographic models speak directly to each consumer, calling their names as they walk by. Walmart has insisted that digital labels do not collect any customer information, but the potential has understandably alerted those at the local and state level enough, as reported, to introduce and pass bills limiting such pricing strategies. It is the reason that Amherst resident Todd Harasicki's demonstration to Erie County legislators hit home. Harasicki used a 20-ounce Coca-Cola bottle to demonstrate how pricing based on shopping habits or browsing history could affect the cost. To her credit, New York Attorney General Letitia James has been a strong advocate for legislative changes that would protect consumers from predatory pricing. Locally, Erie County Democratic legislators Tasha St. Jean Tard and Lawrence Dupre co-sponsored a memorial resolution urging Hochul to sign the One Fair Price Act into law. This would be a step in the right direction in ensuring that advances in pricing technology do not outpace basic expectations of transparency and fairness for consumers. As retail systems continue to evolve, policymakers will need to define clearer boundaries between operational efficiency and individualized pricing. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one is by Adam Zyklus of the Buffalo News, and it shows President Trump, and he is standing there, and his face is starting to shred. The strips of either suntan or face powder are starting to peel off and flake off, and underneath that shows his, shall we say, a clown face. It's either a clown face or a Joker face, folks, whichever way you want to read it. But anyhow, the strips are coming of the suntan and flesh color are flaking off just like the strips that are peeling in the reflecting pool in the Washington, D.C. Mall. The second cartoon is by Steve Kelly of Creator Syndicate, and it shows, it's two-panel, and it shows Kamala Harris, and there's a Democrat talking to her, and Kamala says, hope should be a verb. And the Democrat said, it is a verb, Kamala. For example, and he turns around and walks away in the second panel, we sure hope you won't be the nominee again. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. Hegseth demeaned heroes of D-Day. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth managed to embarrass himself recently when he spoke at the D-Day anniversary celebrations in Europe. Rather than focus on the bravery of those who overcame nearly all odds in attacking the Nazis' heavily defended Atlantic Wall, he elected to disparage our European allies for being invaded by immigrants. He berated our European friends for permitting the invasion of immigrants, as if immigrants willingly left friends and families to take the long and dangerous trips over land and water to deliberately and negatively impact European societies. Much the same could be said for those immigrants seeking admission to the United States along our southern border. Hegseth's remarks rankled many Europeans, including British historian Simon Schama, who called him a comic book nobody, for his obscene desecration of those who stormed the beaches of Normandy. Let us now recall Republican President Ronald Reagan, who called immigration a vital life force that keeps our country renewed, energetic, and innovative. Reagan cautioned that if America ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would be lost. This from Phil Zimmer of Jamestown.
Thank you, Larry. Braver Angels provides connection. On June 13th, the Buffalo News ran an opinion piece from Kristen Scott Kennedy with some lessons about bringing Americans together, including a yearning for connections. Braver Angels is the nation's largest nonpartisan secular organization committed to the depolarization of America by providing opportunities for Americans to connect to one another. BA events are designed by joint teams of those who identify as red, conservative, and blue, progressive or liberal, and are organized around connection. When participating in a BA event, no one is asked to change their mind or defend their position. Instead, the workshops provide opportunities to connect with people with different opinions, to learn about their perspective, and to share your own. A group of local volunteers is working on establishing a BA alliance here in Western New York. All are welcome. People can learn more by emailing wnybraverangels@gmail.com. And it's written by Jen Borgioli, Braver Angels, New York State co-chair, Buffalo. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Downtown development has been a failure. I have lived here for 65 of my 76 years. My wife came to college here in 1970 and never left. We even opened a business here in 2002, Fleet Feet Sports. Now it's time to leave. We live downtown and we're tired of all the promised and failed development. We walk around almost every day and it's hard to get excited about what we see. Doug Jamel has for sale or lease signs on many of his properties. The M&A's building continues to rot away right in the center of the city. The Brown administration and that common council, many still active council members, handcuffed the Ryan administration through an abject failure to property budget. Our comptroller continues to spend money suing the city, claiming responsibilities that clearly aren't hers. So it's time. Nothing changes here. We are off to Savannah, which offers a vibrant downtown and a river walk with multiple hotels and restaurants. It's everything we've waited for in Buffalo. We don't want Buffalo to fail. We are always and will be Buffalonians. We're just tired of hoping for change only to be consistently disappointed. Hoping for the best for Mayor Ryan and the current administration. This from Dan Plancto of Buffalo.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:31. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about development, and it's written by Lou Jean Fleuron, who is co-founder of Partnership for the Public Good. Waterfront should belong to everyone. After many years of trying, Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, that's ECHDC, recently finalized the terms of a development agreement for the vacant land where Memorial Auditorium once stood. The plan features the construction of 3 multi-story buildings to create 251 apartments of varying sizes, commercial space, and community uses. Such a mixed-use development for this last available site within Canalside should receive widespread appreciation. Instead, a group of well-known local developers objected strenuously to the specific term of the agreement that will make half of the apartments affordable housing. In a letter to public officials, they said, "The project has quietly strayed far from our community's plan for the waterfront, a plan which so far has proven successful." Apparently, their community plan is to exclude working people from living on the waterfront. Their plan would continue to use public money, taxpayer money, to benefit only people considered rich enough to qualify to be in their community. Canalside is the site of the region's first community benefit agreement, reached as a statement of principles for high road development of Buffalo's waterfront, adopted by ECHDC and the Canalside Community Alliance in 2013. Among the principles agreed to is preferences for mixed income, workforce, and affordable housing. The CSCA was a coalition of 60 diverse community organizations that organized itself to have community input on the long-promised, long-stalled Buffalo waterfront redevelopment. The broad public involvement in Canalside development was rooted in decades of civic activism to make the waterfront accessible and valuable to the entire community. Then we asked, whose waterfront is it? Now we have to ask, whose community is this? Aren't we all in it? Today we face historic levels of economic inequality and the rapid erosion of rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Once again, we are called to action to bring those egalitarian democratic ideals to life. Thankfully, ECHDC stood by its agreement with the CSCA, and Governor Kathy Hochul joined them in rebuffing the idea of exclusivity. We should applaud them and redouble our efforts to make real the promise of a city of good neighbors. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is from Annie Laurie Gaylor, and she's writing for Progressive Perspectives. The founders knew that America isn't one nation under God. This July 4th, America will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a document that throws off the yoke of a divinely appointed ruler. But President Trump is exploiting this occasion to promote a revisionist history of America as one nation under God. These words, importantly, appear nowhere in the Declaration. It wasn't until 1954, during the height of the Cold War, that the words under God were added to the Pledge of Allegiance, after heavy lobbying of Congress by religious groups and clergy. Similarly, In God We Trust was adopted as the nation's motto in 1956. Those who insist America is one nation under God, or even a so-called Christian nation, look to the Declaration of Independence as proof. Presumably, this is because it contains 4 passing references to deity: nature's God, creator, providence, and supreme judge of the world. Thomas Jefferson's original draft of this document has only one deistic reference to the laws of nature and the nature's God. This is the vocabulary of a deist of the Enlightenment, as historians classified Jefferson. Jefferson was a skeptic who literally cut out reference to the supernatural from the New Testament, creating what became known as the Jefferson Bible. He refused to issue any proclamation of prayer or thanksgiving and coined the phrase separation between church and state in reference to the First Amendment, which holds that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. It's absurd to propose that Jefferson's reference to nature's God was intended to suggest that the newly birthed United States of America should become a theocracy. Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration contains just one use of the word Christian, a mocking reference to the Christian King of Great Britain, who he blamed for introducing the horrors of slavery to this continent. The Declaration does not reference Christianity, Jesus, the Ten Commandments, a church or a sect, or the Bible. Its stated point was to dissolve the political bands and declare independence over a monarchy. It's a repudiation of the King of England, citing 27 grievances, quite a few of which could be thrown back in Trump's face, such as he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. Jefferson's most important thought, that governments derive their power from consent of the governed, is profoundly anti-scriptural. There is no democracy in the Bible. The Declaration simply is not our governing document. That is the Constitution, the first in history not to invoke a deity as sovereign, but we the people, its only references to religion exclusionary. Article 6 specifies no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. The Declaration was tantamount to divorce papers, but the Constitution is like vows for a new marriage. This is especially important today when apparently 3 in 10 U.S. adults have no religious affiliation and another 7% ascribe to non-Christian faith. They are part of we the people, whether the president likes it or not. So let's toast to America's 250th birthday and the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by rededicating America to our original motto, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, chosen by Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin. Christian nation zealots have never understood its wisdom, that unity requires inclusion, pluralism, and freedom of conscience. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. HSBC planning to lease more space in Larkinville. HSBC Bank USA wants to give its employees in Larkinville more space to work together, as well as room for potential growth. So the bank will lease office space in the Larkin at Exchange Building next to its Buffalo hub in the Larkin U Building. HSBC is not leaving the Larkin U Building. Instead, the bank will add space for use by up to 200 employees in the Exchange Building. We need to rethink what working looks like post-COVID, said Jason Henderson, President and CEO of HSBC Bank USA. I think we probably at some stages maybe shrunk our footprint a little too much in terms of the number of desks. Henderson said some employees have said they want to work from the office more frequently, but there aren't always enough workstations available. Some employees in Buffalo today might only be able to come in 1 day a week, and the goal is to get it to at least 3, he said. HSBC signed a 10-year lease for 31,000 square foot on the 10th floor of the Exchange Building, which covers about half of the floor. Larkin Development Group owns the building. The bank's offices at Larkin U consists of about 65,000 square feet spread across 4 floors. With the additional space it is taking in the Exchange Building, the bank will increase its total space in the neighborhood of 48%. The bank plans to start using the additional space in the first quarter of 2027, Henderson said. I think we solve problems better together than we do over a video screen, he said. The goal would be to create more capacity so we can have more collaboration in the office. Henderson said he thought about HSBC leasing even more space in the Exchange building, but we'll take this for now and see how this works out. The goal is to create a space that makes it worth people coming into the office 3, 4, or 5 days a week, and they start to find it makes it better for us to solve problems for our clients, he said. HSBC has about 1,000 employees based in the Buffalo area. The bank isn't pledging to increase the size of its Buffalo workforce with the additional space, but Henderson said it does create more capacity if the bank decides to add employees for roles that emerge. About 1/5 of HSBC's U.S.-based employees are in Buffalo. The location serves as HSBC's global U.S. dollar clearinghouse. Last year, the Buffalo operations managed more than $128 trillion in payment flows, connecting financial institutions and businesses across over 50 countries to the global financial system. The additional space builds on the presence in Larkinville that HSBC established in 2024, when the bank concentrated its local workforce at the Larkin U building on Van Rensselaer Street. HSBC previously owned the atrium across from KeyBank Center and had leased space in Depew before shifting to Larkinville. To have a global institution like HSBC continue to grow with us in Larkin means so much to us, said Kamala Zemsky, CEO of Larkin Development Group. It gives us the confidence and strengthens our ability to continue to grow a mixed-use district. Their growth in the Larkin at Exchange building really has a direct relationship on how we can continue to develop the neighborhood. Larkin Development Group is renovating the office space to prepare for HSBC's arrival. With the addition of HSBC, the building will be about 85% occupied, Zemsky said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Amazon hits construction milestone at Niagara site. Nearly 30 months after construction began in the town of Niagara on a massive new regional distribution center for Amazon.com, major work has been completed on the 5-story building and attention has shifted to the facility's enormous interior. Things are moving along well, Amazon spokesman Mark Heinzman said, but officials won't say when the $550 million facility will open, although it has taken longer than expected. That can always shift a bit as we get closer, but we're making good progress and will share updates as operations approach, Heinzman said. The sprawling 5-story building is up and fully enclosed, towering above the fields and nearby homes and businesses along Lockport, Packard, and Tuscarora roads, as well as the adjacent Niagara Falls International Airport and Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station. New traffic lights have been installed at the entrance, and the parking lot is full of cars for contractors and other workers. Crews are installing the tools and equipment that will be used inside the facility once it opens, such as the conveyance systems, robotics technology, and materials handling equipment that receive orders, pick items out of inventory, and send them on the first leg of their journey to consumers. I think it's unbelievably important. Sometimes we see these things, these promises, and nothing ever happens, said Mark Gabriel, counsel for the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency. It's amazing to see that facility right now and the amount of activity that's going on there. It's pretty significant for our area. Additionally, Heinzman said the site leadership is in place and the company is hiring for a limited number of roles. Broader hiring efforts will begin later. Amazon and its contractors are working directly on the project completion, said Niagara Town Supervisor Sylvia Virtuoso. We look forward to their opening as soon as it is totally complete and safe for all. The long-awaited new facility is one of the largest construction projects in western New York, and its progress is widely watched, particularly in Niagara County, where Amazon will immediately become a major employer with more than 1,000 workers projected to be hired on site. Amazon and its developer, JB2 Partners, are building the retailer's 4th major automated robotics fulfillment center in New York at 8995 Lockport Road. Those are what the company refers to as its first mile distribution facilities, where packages start their journey after a customer places an order and items are selected from the company's inventory. Plans for the $550 million project call for a 5-story building with 3.1 million square feet, equivalent to 53 football fields, where swarms of mini robots and employees would receive bulk shipments of products from vendors, suppliers, and sellers, and then package them for shipment to sortation and delivery stations like those in Hamburg and Lancaster. A slightly smaller version opened in Gates outside Rochester with 2.7 million square feet. The facility would occupy part of the northern 111 acres of the 217-acre parcel of vacant land that Amazon purchased in the summer of 2023. The concrete and steel building would consist of a 650,000 square foot ground level and 4 additional floors of 606,750 square foot each. It would include 55 loading docks, 469 trailer parking spaces, and parking for 1,755 cars. The project received $123 million in tax breakers from the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency. Construction began in early 2024, but has taken longer than expected. Every project has its setbacks for one reason or another, Virtuoso said. It will be here for many years to come, so the slight delay in opening is not an issue. We are extremely happy they chose the town of Niagara for their new home, and we look forward to a great community partnership with them.
Thank you, Larry. Airfares may stay high despite peace deal. Airlines stand to save billions of dollars on jet fuel after an interim U.S.-Iran peace deal sent oil prices lower, but passengers are unlikely to see immediate relief as tight capacity may allow carriers to keep fares well above pre-war levels. The U.S. market offers the clearest example. Fare increases still lag this year's run-up in fuel costs, while domestic seat growth remains limited. That gives airlines leeway to use lower fuel bills to rebuild margins rather than reverse recent price increases. U.S. jet fuel spot prices stood at $2.85 a gallon on June 17th, down sharply from an early April high of $4.88. A decline of that size would cut the U.S. airline industry's annual fuel bill by more than $40 billion if sustained, according to Reuters' calculation based on industry fuel consumption. As jet fuel prices surge, U.S. airlines raised ticket prices and bag fees and cut schedules, but those costs have offset only part of the rise in fuel costs. Industry data shows jet fuel prices rose more than 3 times as fast as airfares from January through May. Deutsche Bank estimated U.S. carriers would recover only about 60 cents of every additional dollar spent on fuel, $14.4 billion in higher revenue against $24.1 billion in higher fuel costs. Air Alaska said it is recovering about 1/3 of the increase, while Delta Airlines, United Airlines, and American Airlines put second quarter recapture at about 40 to 50%. JetBlue Airways and Frontier Group expect to recover less than half. United CEO Scott Kirby said his airline was getting closer to recouping the fuel cost spike through pricing. We're on a path to recovering 100% by the end of the year. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. More consumers favor home buying over renting. A majority of U.S. consumers said they would prefer to buy a home rather than rent or move in with family for the first time since 2023. The findings point to improving sentiment towards homeownership, even as elevated mortgage rates, high home prices, and limited housing supply continue to weigh on the market.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Brooks Ronald W. Colella Betty E. Nakolpi. Cortade Roberta M. Napalmer. Dudek Joseph. Holland Edward. Kazarovsky Jr. Kenneth. Kimnitzer Donald. Link Noreen Beam. Offhouse Sandra J. Knapp. O'Hara Reverend Michael D. Raymond Robert. Roselle Kevin J., Zimmerman Carol Chuck, Zubler Robert P. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, June 24, 2026. You are determined, realistic, and energetic. You are also affectionate and committed to those who are dear to you. This is a year of work and construction. Simplicity is key. Aries, 3 stars. Continue to focus on home and family issues, especially repairs and improvements. This is a lovely day to socialize and enjoy fun activities with kids. However, disputes about shared property taxes, debt, or inheritances could create power struggles. Tonight, check your finances. Taurus, 2 stars. This is a busy time for you with short trips, appointments, and conversations with everyone. You might be decorating at home and entertaining. Be patient with partners and authority figures today. Stay chill. Tonight, listen and cooperate. Gemini, 3 stars. It's fortunate that fair Venus is in your house of communications, smoothing difficult conversations that you might encounter today. This is because power struggles related to your job, your pet, or your health are hard to avoid. Tonight, get busy. Cancer, you are a nurturing sign with 3 stars. And today, you might feel compelled to have your way with issues related to your kids, social outings, and the arts. Make sure to listen to what others have to say. Tonight, socialize. Leo, 2 stars. Something might upset you to the point that you lose focus on everything else. Deep breaths. Tonight, relax at home. Virgo, 3 stars. This is a popular time for you, and you might be interacting with younger people more than usual. Travel and educational plans, along with medical and legal issues, also might be on the table. Tonight, discussions. Libra, 3 stars. You like pleasant harmony in your surroundings. Furthermore, you are noticed now because the sun is high in your chart, making you look good, which is fortunate. Tonight, check your money. Scorpio, 2 stars. You are a strong-willed sign, and when you want something, you can be threatening or overpowering. Turn down the volume today. Tonight, you win. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Something going on behind the scenes is what filling your thoughts. It's all you can think about. To break free from this obsessive grip, focus on work and being productive today. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Capricorn, 3 stars. Be easygoing and cooperative when talking to friends and members of groups and organizations today because personality issues will easily arise. Let go of what is creating your angst. Tonight, be friendly. Aquarius, 2 stars. Increased chaos and activity at home might be frustrating now. Fortunately, you are prepared to work. Tonight, others notice you. Pisces, 3 stars. Focus on playful opportunities to socialize with others and enjoy sports, the arts, and fun times with children. Work colleagues will also be pleasant and supportive. Therefore, don't get bogged down in politics, religion, or racial issues, which might upset you. Tonight, learn and explore ideas.
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise, checking in on elderly loved ones. Dear Heloise, I read a letter about keeping track of elderly people who live alone and their pets. A friend of my mother's was left 3 days after having a stroke before someone found her. After this, I began calling my mother daily at 8 a.m. She'd answer and say, I don't know anything. And I'd say, I don't know anything. And then an hour later, we'd hang up after chatting. I miss those calls. Now I'm the one living alone, and I text my son daily that I'm okay. I also keep a bowl full of dry cat food for my Katie just in case something happens. And that's from Linda H. Linda, I used to call home frequently when I was away to make certain that my folks were okay and that they knew that I was too. I call my friends regularly to make certain that everyone is safe and well. In this busy world, we should all look out for people who might need help. Hungry house pests. Dear Heloise, my husband and I just spent a small fortune on a termite infestation in our home. I don't want to have to go through this again, so what should I do to avoid termites in the future? From Doug and Mamie in Houston. Doug and Mamie, here are suggestions that I received from a pest control company. Never let shrubs, stacked firewood, trellises, or tree branches touch the house. This goes for wooden decks and wooden planters as well. Termites usually look for water. The items mentioned above provide a pathway into your house. Folks, I'm reading this off the computer, and I had problems scrolling. So it's not the paper, it's me. Because
It's usually the paper, though. Almost always.
I'll blame it on myself this time. Because they seek water, try to keep puddles, sprinklers, and water fountains away from your home. A water feature may be nice to look at, but it attracts termites. If there's any indication of termites, such as tunnels, loose wooden steps, or perhaps holes in your wooden deck, or if you see an actual termite, call a professional pest control company. Ignoring their damage will only result in more damage to your home. If you use a professional pest controlling company, ask them about installing a French drain, which channels water away from your home. And the Thanksgiving tree. Dear Heloise, this past year, my family, my husband and I, as well as our 6 children, plus both of our mothers, couldn't gather together for Christmas. So I decided to have a Thanksgiving tree. I bought a small blue spruce tree, which we later planted in our yard and decorated it in a fall theme. When everyone arrived on Thanksgiving, I gave them each a piece of paper and told them to write down what they were thankful for. Then I folded the papers and placed them on the tree. Later in the evening, I read them out loud to everyone while we rested after such a heavy meal. The Thanksgiving tree was a big hit with everyone, and that's from Connie R. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is from Digest. Judge rules against immigration policies. A federal judge in California vacated the Trump administration's nationwide policies expanding arrests at immigration courthouses and the duration of detaining non-citizens in short-term facilities. Tuesday, finding the actions of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and another government arm arbitrary and capricious. U.S. District Judge P. Casey Pitts of the Northern District of California vacated ICE's policies that had been rescinded previous strictures on arrests at immigration courthouses and allowed detainees to be held in short-term cells for up to 72 hours. He did the same for a similar policy undertaken by the U.S. Department of Justice's Executive Office for Immigration Reviews that removed limits on courthouse arrests. Pitts, appointed by former President Joe Biden, effectively reinstated Biden-era policies that limited arrests at immigration courthouses to narrow circumstances and capped detentions in short-term facilities to 12 hours. Court okays expanded deportation process. A federal appeals court cleared the way Tuesday for the Trump administration to expand a fast-track deportation process that would allow for the expedited removal of migrants who are living far from the border. A panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit ruled 2-1 to overturn a decision by a judge who in August 2025 blocked the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's move to expand who qualifies for expedited removal. The expedited removal process was used to quickly return immigrants apprehended at the border. But in January 2025, the administration expanded its scope to cover non-citizens apprehended anywhere in the U.S. who could not show that they were in the U.S. for 2 years. And briefly, Texas, 8 people were each sentenced to 30 to 100 years in prison Tuesday in connection with violence July 4, 2025 at an El Dorado, Texas federal immigration facility that prosecutors called domestic terrorism.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 24th on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beaner.
On to some local and regional news. Hochul panel will explore bringing Olympics to the state. It may take something close to a miracle to get the Winter Olympics back in Lake Placid, but Governor Kathy Hochul says she is serious about giving it a try. An exploratory committee over the next year will examine the feasibility of New York City and Lake Placid co-hosting the 2042 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games, Hochul announced Monday. Citing this year's Winter Olympics in Italy, held between Milan and Cortina, which are 260 miles apart, Hochul said the panel will explore whether New York could follow suit with games held between New York City and Lake Placid, roughly 290 miles apart. The governor, in a news release, said the state has made general investments in winter sports infrastructure in recent years, which includes modernized facilities in Lake Placid. The Adirondacks town of roughly 2,300 residents hosted the Winter Olympics in 1932 and 1980. Lake Placid is where the U.S. hockey team stunned the world with its Miracle on Ice, a 4-3 victory over the Soviet Union on February 22, 1980. Team USA captured the gold medal 2 days later with a 4-2 victory over Finland. Backers of holding the Olympics in two places say that while Lake Placid could hold alpine events such as skiing, venues such as Madison Square Garden in Manhattan and Barclays Center in Brooklyn could hold hockey, figure skating, speed skating, and curling. Western New York lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle have expressed support for an Olympic return to New York. The announcement comes as New York and New Jersey are co-hosting FIFA World Cup soccer games. The time is now to return the Olympic flame back to New York, Hochul said in a statement on the eve of Olympic Day. Milano Cortina showcased the immense possibility that comes with the dual-city Olympic Games. It's clear we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build on Lake Placid's Olympic legacy, New York City's global platform, and the strengths that make our state unique. The Winter Olympics are held every 4 years. The Paralympics, which includes athletes with disabilities, is held shortly after the Olympic Games. An 8-member leadership team chaired by former Olympian luger Ashley Walden, who chairs the state's Olympic Regional Development Authority, will guide the exploratory committee. The panel is expected to submit its finding to the state, which will determine whether to ultimately pursue the plans to hold the games in dual locations. Committee members will examine if the games can be held at existing venues and whether their sustainability, fiscal responsibility, and community engagement could support the state's broader goals for the economy, tourism, infrastructure, and regional development, officials said. I have long believed New York City and Lake Placid can tell a uniquely New York story, one of urban and rural communities coming together behind a shared vision. Assembly member Robert Carroll, Democrat of Brooklyn, a vocal cheerleader to return the games to New York. He said the state is uniquely positioned to explore hosting a successful, sustainable, and inspiring winter games. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Feds sue New York over ban on masks. The U.S. Department of Justice has filed a federal lawsuit in Buffalo seeking to overturn a just-passed New York state law that bars law enforcement officials from wearing masks while interacting with the public. One measure, among others, that Kathy Hochul, governor, supported to hold ICE accountable. The ban, set to take effect Friday, covers state, local, and federal law enforcement officials, but state officials clearly aim the ban at the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, whose agents have arrested immigrants and clashed with protesters. The state also prohibited local governments and state agencies from entering into agreements with the federal government. The federal lawsuit calls the provisions blatantly unconstitutional. New York recently passed bills which Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law that purport to do exactly what constitutional law says it cannot: subject federal officers to criminal laws that seek to regulate how these officers carry out their federal duties according to the lawsuit. Federal law enforcement agencies cannot and will not comply with the challenged laws which are unconstitutional, the lawsuit said. The state's face covering and identification acts recklessly disregard officers' safety, public safety, and federal operational needs, according to the lawsuit. New York law enforcement agencies at the state and local levels have entered into valid agreements with ICE over the years. Yet the New York legislature now seeks to void those contracts. The measures make New York communities less safe by making federal law enforcement more dangerous, according to the DOJ. State officials in turn announced Tuesday that the state has sued the Trump administration to protect the new package of state laws. A badge carries with it a responsibility to uphold the public's trust. By hiding their faces and refusing to wear identification, federal immigration officers endanger New Yorkers and intentionally evade accountability. Our communities should not have to live in fear of being disappeared by unidentified masked agents. If the federal government wants to brazenly defy our laws, then we will fight tooth and nail in court. The federal lawsuit names as defendants Michael Russo, the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the State Attorney General's office. The federal lawsuit noted that while the federal government possesses broad power over immigration, enforcing the immigration laws is a formidable challenge with significant complexities. As of this month, New York has 14 agreements across 12 agencies in 12 counties and municipalities. All of the agreements are directly with police or sheriff's departments, falling into 3 categories: task force, warrant service, and jail enforcement. Meanwhile, the face covering law prevents a law enforcement officer from wearing any face covering that conceals their facial identity while interacting with the public. Also, uniformed law enforcement officers must display the name of their agency or department and at least one form of identification, such as the officer's name, badge number, or shield number. The DOJ lawsuit asserts that the activists in New York have subjected ICE enforcement and removal operation officers to being spit on and having objects thrown at them during enforcement activities. Wearing facial coverings can minimize exposure to these and other health hazards, according to the lawsuit. If images of a CBP officer or agent's face become widely distributed, then that officer or agent will be less safe and effective when conducting surveillance, plainclothes operations, or undercover operations, according to the lawsuit. Law enforcement is always a dangerous job, but now it is an extremely dangerous time to serve in federal law enforcement. Protecting the personal identities of federal officers and their families is necessary in part due to increasing threats of targeted harassment. While such threats have always existed, the volatile political environment has increased such threats exponentially. More people are photographing and filming law enforcement personnel and publishing federal enforcement actions online and including the personal identification of federal officers for the sole purpose of intimidation and harassment. This content is directly used by members of organized crime and transnational criminal organizations in serious and potentially deadly ways, the lawsuit added. Facial coverings are a necessity in preventing agitators from identifying and tracking officers, especially those using facial recognition or other tools. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Schools see dip in suspensions, but advocates warn gaps remain. Buffalo Schools and New York State Attorney General's office came to an agreement in February that the city school district would overhaul its disciplinary policies and practices after years of data showed Buffalo suspended marginalized populations at higher rates than their peers. 4 months after the settlement was reached, community advocates stood on the steps at City Hall on Tuesday to argue that suspension practices remain essentially unchanged. Western New York Law Center, New York Civil Liberties Union, University at Buffalo School of Law, Connect, and the WNY Educational Equity Task Force, known together as the Buffalo Solutions Not Suspensions Coalition, were among the groups present at the news conference. They said the settlement between the school district and the AG's office, known as an assurance of discontinuance, has yet to make a meaningful impact. It's a scathing report about what's going on in this district as relates to the violation of the rights of our children, said Samuel Radford III. And so we assumed that would be the beginning of change. We're here today to tell you as we end this school year that it hasn't changed. According to the AG findings, black students were in some cases 6 times more likely to be suspended than white students, while Latino students were suspended 4 times as often as white students, citing data between 2020 and 2025. The data was also disproportional for students with disabilities. Tuesday's speakers stressed common themes about how suspensions were still being handled across the district. Limited restorative conferences have been offered to settle student conflicts. In lieu of suspension, the advocates said, students were still being sent home without a written notice instead of being offered a principal's conference with their family. Suspensions were issued for low-level violations such as classroom disruption and inciting a disturbance. What we've seen over the last 4 months cannot be described as the meaningful support that we were hoping for, said Quinn Martha, Assistant Director at NYCLU's Education Center Policy Center. With alarming regularity, students have continued to be denied their due process rights, and we are watching building administrators not even attempt the Tier 1 or Tier 2 level supports before suspending a student for days at a time. Where does the district stand? In the short term, Buffalo Schools leadership is celebrating a significant drop in short-term suspension, a report which received a rousing cheer from the Buffalo School Board in its otherwise chaotic June board meeting. After about 6,100 short-term suspensions, 5 days or fewer, in the 24-25 school year, Buffalo Schools is finishing this year with about 3,700, according to its data, a 39% decrease. Its 6.7% suspension rate is also the first time Buffalo Schools rate has been below 9% since 2015, with the exception of the years affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The district's stance is one of incremental progress and urging patience from the community for change to happen. Superintendent Pascal Mubenga in early June said he's orchestrating changes over the summer and into the fall that should make a serious difference. I told them for this problem was not created overnight, Mubenga said of his conversation with advocates, and Buffalo is not the only district facing issues with suspensions, especially for people of color. He said the district is considering about $500,000 in de-escalation and restraint training for staff and security, and he planned to make discipline improvements a key theme in the principal's retreat in September. I'll be the keynote speaker, he said, so I'll be setting the tone. For now, the district's underlying short-term suspension metrics continue to show disparity among populations. For instance, 10.1% of special education students have been suspended this school year, compared with 5.7% of general education students. About 7.6% of economically disadvantaged students received suspensions, compared to 2.4% of students with greater affluence. And it's for those reasons the district's overall improvement rings hollow, advocates said Tuesday. If the numbers are going down and the disparities increase or remain the same, it's not a win, said Samantha White, an attorney for the WNY Law Center. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. 3 violations dropped against DigiPower X. 3 noise ordinance charges against DigiPower X were dismissed Tuesday after North Tonawana's prosecutor said the city could not move forward with violations issued under a law that has since been replaced. Daniel Rotuno, Vice President of Operations of DigiPower X, and the company's attorney, Matthew Bird, appeared in North Tonawanda City Court on Tuesday afternoon for a hearing on the 4 noise ordinance violations filed against it. DigiPower was cited for exceeding city noise limits at least 4 times in July of last year. The company has operated a cryptocurrency mining operation at its facility on Erie Avenue since 2022. Hundreds of supercomputers on site are cooled by large fans, which produce a loud humming noise that can be heard reverberating throughout nearby neighborhoods. Following reporting by the Buffalo News in July 2024 about the harms that noise pollution can cause to the health of the residents, the city enacted a 2-year moratorium on new data centers for the expansion of existing one. The moratorium, which was recently extended for another year, was put in place to allow the city time to update its noise ordinance and zoning laws to account for data centers, including cryptocurrency mining operations. Meanwhile, DigiPower X has said it wants to expand its existing facility off of Erie Avenue and use it for an AI data center and move the city, and residents said they oppose. In July 2025, North Tonawanda police officers took noise measurements around the facility and found it was violating the city's nighttime decibel limit. However, those measurements were taken and the citations stemming from them were issued while the city still had its former noise ordinance. That ordinance was updated in February with the unanimous vote by the North Tonawanda Common Council. In June, the city issued a new noise ordinance violation against DigiPowder X, according to court documents. Enbel Osana, a city prosecutor, said during Tuesday's hearing that he could not move forward with prosecuting the first 3 noise ordinance violations because the old law had been stricken from the books. I spoke with counsel for DigiPower and they were charged with a law that is no longer in effect, Osana said during the Tuesday court hearing. I don't even know what the law says. I tried to look it up, couldn't find it. Osuna recommended the court dismiss the 3 charges which Judge Luke A. Brown agreed to. DigiPower X pleaded not guilty to remaining noise ordinance violations, which was issued under the updated law. A hearing in that case is set for August 11th. Residents who attended the Tuesday court hearing were unhappy with the outcome. Gary Franklin said the dismissals of the 3 initial noise violations against DigiPower X made no sense. In other words, if you break the law and the law changes sometime in the future, you're not held accountable for breaking the law in the first place, he said after the Tuesday hearing. The next hearing in August, that'll make it 13 months now since the first noise ordinance violations were issued. Are you kidding me? That's a long time. Too long. The legal skirmish over noise is taking place amid changes DigiPower X wants to make to its business. It has proposed building a new 80,000 square foot facility in North Tonawanda that would house computers needed to run artificial intelligence programs. Rotuno and Bird from DigiPower X declined to comment after the Tuesday hearing. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:16. On to sports. I have 2 sports shorts first. Hall of Fame quarterback Jim Kelly suffered a mild stroke about a month and a half ago, he told reporters Tuesday as the Buffalo Bills held a ribbon-cutting ceremony at New Highmark Stadium. It's the latest health scare for the Kelly, 66, who led the Bills to 4 straight Super Bowl appearances in the early 1990s. He has survived multiple cancer diagnoses and several surgeries. I spent a few days in a hospital, but right now I feel good, he said Tuesday. Eyesight's not great. My hearing still sucks, but that's part of life. It's part of getting old, but I feel really good. Kelly said his recent screens for cancer have all come back clean. And drone seizures. U.S. agencies have seized over 300 drones near FIFA, FIFA, World Cup venues since the tournament began on June 11th, the Transportation Security Administration said on Tuesday. On match days, all aircraft operations, including drones, are prohibited within a radius of 3 nautical miles and up to 3,000 feet above ground level around the stadiums unless specifically authorized by air traffic controllers. The FBI's Miami field office said it had issued tickets to 49 operators of drones for unauthorized flights and seized 54 drones in Florida. The Federal Aviation Administration has barred drones from flying over matches and related fan gatherings across the United States. At fan gatherings, drones are barred within a 1 nautical mile radius and up to 1,000 feet above ground level. The FAA said drone operators who enter restricted airspace without approval can face fines of up to $100,000. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Sabres release preseason schedule. The NHL's regular season schedule has increased, so the preseason schedule has decreased. The Buffalo Sabres announced their 4-game preseason schedule for the 26-27 season. The team will play host to 2 home games with the other 2 on the road. The Sabres will face the Pittsburgh Penguins in their first preseason game at 7 p.m. September 21st at PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh. The Sabres will host the Columbus Blue Jackets at 7 p.m. September 22nd at KeyBank Center, then play the Detroit Red Wings at 7 p.m. September 24th at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. The Sabres close the preseason at 3 p.m. September 26th against the Penguins at KeyBank Center. Preseason schedules have been shortened from 6 games to 4 games beginning in the 26-27, and the regular season schedule for teams will be 84 games, up from 82. The changes are a result of the new collective bargaining agreement, which the NHL Players Association and the NHL ratified last July. The NHL will announce its 26-27 regular season schedule next month. And Darlene Honored Sabres captain and defenseman Rasmus Dahlin is the recipient of the Gold Puck in Sweden, given annually to the country's top male hockey player. Dahlin helped the Sabres to their first berth in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2011 and helped the Sabres win the Atlantic Division title. He played for Sweden in the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina d'Ampezzo in February and was one of the 3 finalists for the Norris Trophy given annually to the NHL's top defenseman. Dahlin scored a career-best 74 points, 19 goals, and 55 assists in 77 regular season games, and he was named to the NHL's second All-Star team. He was also one of 3 finalists for the Bill Masterton Trophy, which was the Professional Hockey Writers Association Awards in honor of the player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. The Golden Puck has been awarded in Sweden since 1956 and it was first given to an NH player in 2015. Dahlin is the first Sabres player to win the award. Previous winners include Pittsburgh defenseman Erik Karlsson, Colorado left wing Gabriel Landeskog, and Hockey Hall of Fame goaltender Henrik Lundqvist.
Thank you, Larry. After ceremony, tweaks remain for Highmark. Plan is for all work to be complete before Blue and Red event. Where will you meet up with your friends at the new Highmark Stadium? Will it be the Bison statues in Family Circle, the giant folding table in the Southwest 100 level, or the scale model of the Peace Bridge within the venue? There's a lot of things that Bills fans will want to say, hey, meet me at the full-size camper bus that's up in the 300 level, Frank Gravata said. Gravata, the Bills' senior vice president of design and stadium operations, got a simple instruction from team owner Terry Pagula. Well, the boss came to me and said, Frank, when you plop me down in my new stadium, I better know immediately that I'm in Buffalo, Gravata said. And some of those things aren't here yet. And we have such a proud history, right? We have such great stories to tell. On Tuesday at the Highmark Stadium ribbon-cutting ceremony, many of these stories that were on display. The event came just over 3 years since the 2023 groundbreaking ceremony. Since then, 5,369 workers contributed more than 5 million hours of labor into the 60,108-person stadium. But how much exactly is left? In the grand scheme of what we've built, it's like 0.25%, Gravata said of the remaining work, but that's the stuff the people love. A lot of the list that has yet to be done involves signage for different sponsors around the club levels. Gravata also mentioned adding QR codes under the 46 pieces of art around the stadium so that fans can learn more about each piece and the local artist or artists behind it. Gravata aims for everything to be in place before the return of the blue and red practice on August 8th. A few final touches may leak later into August, but overall, Gravata and his team are in a good spot. I say it's kind of your man cave, but we still have a few pictures to hang, Gravata said, so it's going to be coming in the next 30 days. Some of the remaining work comes right on Abbott Road. The 3 bison statues in the plaza have been highly anticipated by fans. The cow and the calf have already arrived. There was a slight hiccup with the bull, which reaches 27 feet tall and weighs a whopping 23,000 pounds. So the biggest one is on his way right now, Gravata told the Buffalo News. That got delayed because New York has to have state troopers, not because of what it is, but because of how much it weighs. The world's largest folding table is also still on the way. It's about 30 feet wide, Gravata said. Yeah, it's pretty big, and giant solo cups are flying in the air, so we're having a lot of fun with stuff like that. Touring local media around the stadium on Tuesday, Gravata was candid about the to-do list that continues to grow. Gravata quips that as the inaugural year gets underway, he'll come up with 500 things to tweak behind the scenes. The first and non-negotiable priority for the stadium, he said, is field safety. Aesthetics, art, and signage are lower down the list, but still important. We have one chance to do this, Gravata said. You see how much this means? Yes, we hear how much it means, and you have one chance. So yes, as much as possible, try to make it perfect. But there is a balance. You could drive yourself crazy in 1 million square feet trying to make everything perfect, Gravata said. And even if there are ups and downs during the process, Gravata still finds it all to be surreal. I'm a guy from Buffalo, so it's like the equivalent of some kid building Yankee Stadium or the Montreal Forum, Gravata said Tuesday. It's a dream. It's incredible. I take it very seriously. And there's a little way to go here, but it's riding a wave, and I'm on top of the wave right now. This feels incredible. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Well, it's summer, and that does mean that football isn't that far behind. Making the right choice. Jameson's long journey brings him to WNY as Bill's defensive line coach. Within a split second, Terrence Jameson saw his trajectory completely change. It was an injury that ended his playing career, but it sent him on a different path. Jameson played defensive line at the University of Wisconsin for 2.5 seasons before a knee injury required a couple of surgeries and cut his career short. He hadn't exactly prepared for the early exit. I was kind of at a crossroads right there, Jameson told Buffalo News. He made a decision to get into athletic administration, but it still felt a little sterile. I really just missed being around football, he added. Jameson had a few mentors to which he turned. Coaches Barry Alvarez and Brett Bielema among them. It was at a summer high school camp with then Wisconsin defensive line coach Charlie Partridge where the light really came on for Jameson. Partridge allowed me to coach the 9th and 10th graders, and I was able to make them through individual drills, team periods, and one-on-one periods, Jameson said. And over 3 days you saw those guys. I saw them get better, improve, and it was just fun. Jameson wasn't the only one who had fun. It was a good time, and at the end of the last day, it was one kid after another with their parents coming up to me and thanking me for helping their son, he said. Quickly, Jameson found his place back in the football world, this time as a coach. Hired in February as the Buffalo Bills defensive line coach, Jameson is making the jump to the professional level after 15 years of coaching in the collegiate ranks. He started building his resume in 2008 as a graduate assistant at his alma mater, and he spent 2010 coaching at the high school level before jumping back to Wisconsin in 2011. Prior to Buffalo, Jameson most served as co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach at the University of Illinois. At each step of his journey, Jameson has felt reaffirmed that he entered the right profession. It's right up my alley. That just fits me personally in terms of all the intricacies of preparation, Jameson said. As a coach, I would describe myself in 3 words: smart, tough, dependable. Jameson added, and ultimately those words are better demonstrated. And so I just pride myself in being prepared and detailed and being consistent, no matter how I feel, no matter what's going on. Jameson's even-keeled personality will be a boost to the Bills' defensive linemen as the group transitions from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 scheme. It's a young group, Jameson notes, and he intentionally shouts out each and every defensive lineman on the roster, not stopping until he names all 10 or 11 if you count the converted Travis Clayton. From veteran Ed Oliver to rookie undrafted free agent Cody Hoisman, it's Jameson's responsibility to bring each player along. What Jameson is finding he loves about the NFL is the marriage of elite competition and a desire to still improve. So what I love about these guys is obviously they're all different and come from different backgrounds, but the first and foremost, these guys' willingness to learn, especially at this level. They're the best football players in the world, Jameson said. He describes his group as humble but energetic, and he explains that he views coaching as a collaboration project, and then he moves on to rattling off the names of other coaches and the defensive staff. Jameson is always quick to credit those around him. Jameson never overlapped with the new Bills defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard at Wisconsin. The two missed each other as players as Jameson's first year at Wisconsin was Leonhard's rookie season with the Bills, and they missed coaching the Badgers together by 4 years, but Jameson's admired Leonhard first as a player, then as a coach, then from afar. Then they joined forces for a year at Illinois in 2023. Now working together again, Jameson appreciates Leonhard's vision for the Buffalo defense, as well as how he communicates it. He's a patient leader, Jameson said of Leonhard. He has the plan already mapped out for the entire system for the entire year. As Leonhard tends to be the defense as a whole, Jameson works more directly with the defensive line on the installation. Game day is when he is calmest. Individual drills at practice are when Jameson finds himself is most intense. But even when that intensity comes out, Jameson uses it to teach a lesson. Power under control is what I try to talk to the guys about, especially as a defensive lineman. They're powerful players, powerful young men. It's important to control that power so it's focused, so I try to be the same way. The players can certainly appreciate the passion and the example he sets. I love Coach J-Mo, defensive lineman Dwayne Carter said. He's awesome from day one. It's really cool the way he goes about his business, his routine. He's really big about the routine for us. But he's the same way himself. In getting to know his new squad, Jameson looks back on all the moving he's done for his defensive line of work. 12 different job titles since 2008. The journey has allowed him to learn and absorb plenty from some great coaches, great staffs, and he's been fortunate to have his family support system at every stop. Now is the time of year he tries to pour back into them. He loves date nights with his wife and high school sweetheart, Ashley. He fishes and he's teaching his kids how to play chess. The extracurriculars matter during the off season, just like they do with the team in season. Our extended family has been there to support us throughout the different transitions that we've had over the years, and it's the same thing in the football family. Jameson said, we spend a lot of time together, so we try to be intentional about the time we spend, not only in the building, but also outside the building. At the end of the day, coaching itself is all about the players for Jameson. It's a blessing, Jameson said. I'm thankful for it. I've learned a lot from them. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:31. Asking Eric, lack of visits, gratitude lead to friends' resentment. Dear Eric, there's someone I have been friends with for more than 37 years. My husband and I moved to another state 12 years ago, but my friendship with this person has endured. She calls every weekday and we mostly talk about her family and her kids, etc. About 6 months ago, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. For decades, this friend has been a quilter, and one trip that she had on her bucket list for years has been to travel to one of the Quilt City USAs. Her husband had no interest in the trip, never prioritized it, and basically ignored her request to go. I felt bad for her, so while I am not a quilter, I eventually agreed to take her. I have since developed hard feelings toward the husband who never once acknowledged my efforts to spare him the time off work and the expense of making this trip with his wife. The primary source of my hurt is that this friend and her husband travel at least once a year to the mountains less than 10 miles from where we live now. Some of their trips are for a couple of weeks at a time. I have always begged them to stop for a visit, even if just for a half hour, and her husband can never be bothered to stop. They'll be in the area again in August for 2 weeks, and I'm ready to just tell my friend to please not mention to me when they're in the area because it hurts me so much that they refuse to come see us. If my friend didn't have this diagnosis, I feel I could easily let the long-distance friendship go. How do you recommend I go forward with this relationship, if at all? From Quitting the Quilter. Dear Quitting, it sounds like you've been a good friend to her. With a less than supportive husband, to put it mildly, she needs a good friend. Although they share responsibility for never visiting you, it may be that she doesn't have as much autonomy in her relationship. Try to extend her some grace, especially since she's navigating this huge change in her life and her health. The husband's faults may be sending a message that doesn't reflect her true intentions. You might not get the visit you want, but see if there's something to be gained by continuing your conversations and maintaining your friendship that way. Dear Eric, 4 years ago I invited a lady friend, her son, and her granddaughter to move in with me and my roommate. My son owned the house, and my lady friend and her son ended up talking me into letting her son buy the house from my son. Her son and I were to buy it together, but she said maybe it would be better just to have his name on it so if something happened to me, he wouldn't have to worry about getting my name off of it. This year she informed me that they decided to sell the house and move back to Florida. She and I have been making the house payments as her son got fired at work for a drug test. I've been trying to get a workers' comp case settled so I can get a home built before they sell the place. I'm in my 70s and really don't want to have to move into a rental and then move into a place I get built. What should I do? From Roommate Dilemma. Dear roommate, the way the house sale went down wasn't ideal. They may see you as simply renting from them, but from the way you describe it, the original plan was for you to be a co-owner of the house, and you've made payments like one without the benefit of ownership. It would have been helpful to get an agreement in writing beforehand, but it may not be too late to work this out fairly. Talk to an attorney about your situation. They'll be able to analyze the specifics and advise you of your options. Short of that, the best solution may be to arrange to keep renting the home from your friend until your house is built. This would mean asking them to delay selling the house. They may not be able to afford them to make their move without selling it, but it doesn't ask to hurt. You might also consider asking your son to help support you in this as the former homeowner. He no longer has any right to this property, of course, but he might be able to help you fill in some financial or logistical gaps while the other pieces, like the workers' comp and the construction of the new home, get sorted. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Turning to local media coverage from Ellen Pergament. Sports coverage declines. Tornado warnings irk viewers. This is what I'm thinking. The decline of daily sports coverage on local television newscasts outside of reporting on the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres has become increasingly evident. One of the downsides of WKWTV's Channel 7 reporting of sports reports rather than carrying them live often means significant national sporting events are downplayed or even ignored. Channel 7 didn't even have a sports report on its 11 p.m. Friday newscast on the day that the U.S. men's soccer team defeated Australia 2-0 in a World Cup match. It's 11 p.m. Sunday newscast didn't have a report on the U.S. Open men's golf championship won by Wyndham Clark for the second time. However, there is one good aspect of recorded sportscasts. No strained happy talk between the anchor and the sports anchor. Speaking of golf, some viewers were upset when WIVB-TV Channel 4 interrupted the final round of the Canadian Open on January 14th for extended coverage of a tornado warning in Pennsylvania, barely inside the station's area. Channel 4 did insert CBS's coverage of the first PGA win by Bud Cauley in a portion of the screen, while meteorologist Mike Doyle carried what seemed like a filibuster on the warning. As annoying as it might have been for golf fans to interrupt Cauley's emotional victory, it wasn't unusual for tornado coverage to get that kind of attention. It isn't legally required, but stations typically feel responsible to cover life-threatening weather inside their viewing area. Because the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals delayed Channel 7's 11 p.m. newscast at Jimmy Kimmel Live, it is too early to tell whether viewers of CBS's canceled Late Night with Stephen Colbert have headed to Kimmel's show or The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon on WGRZ-TV Channel 2 at 11:35 p.m. But one thing is clear in Buffalo. Colbert's replacement, Byron Allen's Comics Unleashed, isn't the answer. In the first 3 weeks after Colbert's exit, it barely hit a 1 Nielsen rating on Channel 4 at the start, and it dropped significantly after that. Kimmel's show is going to be hosted by guest stars during the summer, so it will be this fall before we learn which late-night show viewers are going to watch. Channel 2 is running a promo claiming to have the top streaming newscast in Buffalo. I don't receive streaming viewership numbers, but I would be curious to see what if they are if Channel 2 supplied them. I emailed Channel 2 General Manager Mark Manders to ask for the source of that promotional claim and haven't heard back. Of course, he frequently doesn't respond to my emails. Channel 2 apparently isn't all that interested in updating its roster on its website. It still has meteorologist Jennifer Stanonis and reporter Alexandra Rio Malvia as members of the news team. They both exited the station some time ago. Television critics have short memories and tend to vote for the newest next thing. The recent Television Critics Association nominations ignored the fourth season of The Bear, an FX on Hulu series that had been a critical darling. It wasn't much of a surprise. I was one of the few critics who enjoyed the fourth season, which served as an appetizer for the fifth and final season. The 8 episodes of the final season premiered Thursday. And the continuing absence of Channel 2 co-anchor Mary Alice Dembler, reportedly while dealing with a family matter, has meant co-anchor Scott Levin has had to go it alone on up to 5 newscasts daily. He has been anchoring at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. The 6:30 p.m. streaming newscasts, 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., Channel 2 hasn't said when Dembler will return. At some point, Levin presumably will have a summer vacation week, and it will be interesting to see who will be assigned to his shifts.
Thank you, Larry. Folks, there were 4 articles about the Highmark Stadium. This is article number 4. New era is about to begin, but work remains on new home. The new stadium for the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park is so close to becoming a reality. The stadium is about 99% done, but 1% of the project this size still leaves plenty to do, according to John Polka, Vice President of Stadium Development. The Bills celebrated being on the verge of project completion on Tuesday, 3 years to the month that they broke ground on construction in June 2023. It's a project that's been years in the making, with a 30-year lease, construction agreement, and a community benefits agreement that being reached early in 2022. The approximately $2.2 billion stadium is slated to be ready for the first significant event inside the building, the return of the blue and red practice, on August 8th. The first regular season game there will be September 17th against the Detroit Lions. Much of the work that still needs to be done is branding, signage, and storytelling elements that need to go up, and installation work on some of the 46 areas that will include public art and murals. That's something we'll be working on in the next 30 days, Polka said. However, areas such as the Suite Atrium, which will become the M&T Lounge, that just a few months ago we're just getting started, are now practically done and ready for fans. It is among the many premium spaces for club and suite ticket holders in the stadium. It's a whole new experience that really takes us to what's considered modern facilities, said Frank Cravata, Senior Vice President of the new stadium design. The team received its certificate of temporary occupancy as scheduled on June 1st, meaning the more than 60,000-seat open-air stadium with natural grass is now considered substantially complete. It has allowed the Bills to start getting their football staff and other departments and operation teams into the buildings. And while project construction manager Gilbane Turner has been winding down on the project, the company will keep working on final touches and last-minute items through the Bills' regular season home opener on Thursday Night Football. The Bills used $850 million in public funds from the state and county to build a stadium that began with a $1.4 billion price tag, but rose on several occasions, when team owner Terry Bakula footing the bill for all cost overruns. By the time the lease was signed in March 2023, the cost had already reached $1.55 billion. The team's portion of the project will be around $1.3 billion by the time the stadium is done. That's around $800 million more than the Bills started the project. Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz, a key figure in the negotiations, previously said it was inevitable that the cost of the project would go up, which is why he was such an advocate of the Bills taking care of all cost overruns. More than 5,000 workers, putting in around 5 million labor hours, will have worked on the site by the time the project ends. Pagula is honoring those workers by creating a wall with all their names on it that will be located in front of the main entrance of the stadium. So far, 5,369 names are on the wall. It's you hard-working Americans that got the stadium built, said Pagula, who referred to workers as heroes. It's one thing to talk about it and get the money for it. It's another thing to get it done. Construction crews worked day and night at the stadium project for the past year or so to make sure it was done on time for the 2026 season. That was especially important as the project encountered a number of delays, including the site closing for 4 days after a major vandalism incident. There were about 1,600 workers on the site at the project's height. The worker wall is a great testament to them, and this really is their legacy, Poloncarz said. They're going to be able to come back for games, take their kids, grandkids, maybe even great-grandkids, and say, you see, Grandpa worked on this, or Grandma worked on this. I thought it was a really nice touch. Included in the stadium workforce was more than $490 million in contracts awarded to minority and women-owned businesses, surpassing participation goals set for the project by the state, which takes ownership of the lease from the county at the new stadium. That's more than $250 million in contracts awarded to regional MWBEs. The Bills did have to turn to workers from outside the area to meet the demand, bringing in people from the likes of New York City, Boston, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. We knew we couldn't just do it with Erie County because we didn't have enough workers, Poloncarz previously said, but our folks benefited from it, and that was money in their pockets. In April 2025, a ceremony was held to commemorate the placing of the final piece of structural steel of the building 14 months after the first piece was placed in early 2024. More than 22,000 pieces of steel, weighing more than 25,000 tons, were put into place using several immense cranes. The stadium includes a natural Kentucky bluegrass field surface that's heated, perforated metal and glass panels that surround the building, contributing to wind confusion, minimizing gusts inside, and a 360-degree canopy that tops out at 116 feet above grade, should cover over 60% of the fans in attendance, and features the world's largest snowmelt system. Additionally, there are large open concourses and a sound system that includes 32 speaker arrays on the canopy. There are radiant heaters above in premium areas and throughout the stadium's concourses. The outside of the building is highlighted by Family Circle, a year-round gathering plaza and main entryway located at the northeast side of the new Highmark Stadium. It will serve as a historical landmark for the Bills and include legend statues, with the centerpiece being American bison statues that are now being installed. The largest of the three bison is a bull that towers 27 feet in the air and weighs 23,000 pounds.
That's kind of big.
It's going to take a big crane to do that one.
Oh, yeah. Iran disputes Trump's claims about unfrozen funds. President Trump said Iran will only be able to use funds released from frozen accounts to purchase food and medical supplies from the U.S., seeking to ease concerns about peace negotiations that both sides say are making progress. The billions of dollars of unlocked financing will go into escrow controlled by the USA and will be used for the purchase of U.S.-grown products such as corn, wheat, and soybeans, Trump said on a post on Truth Social on Tuesday. He added that Iran had agreed to the highest-level nuclear inspections long into the future. In the parallel negotiation over Tehran's atomic activities, a central part of the discussions to end the near 4-month war and keep the critical Strait of Hormuz open. However, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Esmail Beghai, disputed both notions, saying the funds would be used by his country freely in whatever manner it deems appropriate, rather than being restricted to purchases from the U.S. Beghai also rejected Trump's claims about nuclear inspections, saying, "We have neither met with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, nor do we have any plans for the agency to inspect Iran's nuclear facilities." Iran said $12 billion of its frozen finances are set to be released as part of ongoing talks in 2 equal installments, according to a report from the Mehr news agency citing Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi. The U.S. is yet to confirm how much the Islamic Republic will get. Trump's post underscores the U.S. president's defensiveness over the deal as it draws criticism from defense hawks in his own party. U.S. farmers, particularly in large swaths of the Midwest and South, are a key political constituency for Trump and Republicans, and one they will need to energize ahead of the November midterm elections. Some critics of the Memorandum of Understanding signed last week fear the Islamic Republic will use the money to rebuild its armed forces and continue to support militant groups such as Hezbollah. Trump said the talks are going well, echoing broadly optimistic comments from the various parties involved. Plenty of other outstanding issues stand in the way of a firm deal, including over Israel's conflict with Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's ongoing military presence in the south of the country has been cited by Iran as a breach of the agreement, jeopardizing the talks. A 5th round of U.S.-mediated talks between Israel and Lebanon is taking place in Washington Tuesday, according to the Israeli embassy in the city. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected in the United Arab Emirates as the U.S. seeks to reassure regional allies the interim agreement it signed last week with Iran is good for their security and economies. Rubio will travel to Kuwait and Bahrain. The Strait of Hormuz will be among the topics of discussion. Traffic through the vital waterway is increasing, pointing to growing confidence among ship owners and traders about sending vessels through as tensions ease. Iran said Tuesday the Strait of Hormuz is fully open to commercial shipping and that large volumes of oil have crossed the checkpoint in recent days, its ambassador in Geneva said, according to the semi-official Iranian Students news agency. Exactly what will open look like remains unclear. Oman and Iran Sunday will begin talks on the future administration of the strait, including services to be provided and costs associated with them in accordance with international standards, according to a joint statement. In talks in Switzerland since Sunday, the U.S. and Iran have agreed to set up technical working groups to deal with issues such as unwinding sanctions on the Islamic Republic and curbing its enrichment of uranium. Vance and Iran's lead negotiator, Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, left Switzerland on Monday, though lower-level delegates are continuing discussions this week. The two sides continue to frame the negotiations in ways aimed at their domestic audiences. The White House is seeking to reassure Iran hawks, while Tehran is portraying the agreement as a concession wrested from Washington. The Islamic Republic's military and infrastructure were battered by U.S. and Israeli bombing from late February, but its closure of the Strait of Hormuz caused energy prices to soar and hurt Trump's standing among America's and allied countries. Oil prices were lower on Tuesday, with Brent declining 1.3% below $77 a barrel. It's down from a high of around $125 in late April, but still above pre-war levels, reflecting that it will take months for oil and liquefied natural gas flows through Hormuz to return to normal. Ghalibaf said on his return from the talks that the Strait of Hormuz would never return to its pre-war state, and Iran would administer the waterway in accordance with international law, the state-run Islamic Republic news agency reported. Vance said negotiators had set up the mechanism to ensure the strait remains open. When speaking earlier to reporters, he did not answer directly when asked if the U.S. wanted Israel to withdraw troops from southern Lebanon. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, told Bloomberg TV that, unfortunately, it's not the case when asked if the Lebanese military can confront the Hezbollah military on its own. We are capable of fighting Hezbollah, but we are not eager to stay in Lebanon, Danon added. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Folks, as you know, the 4th of July is a week and a half from now. So here's an article, Hitting the Road. AAA expecting 61.4 million Americans to drive over the holiday weekend. Despite rising travel costs, Americans will still pack their bags for the July 4th getaways. This year, AAA projects a record 72.2 million Americans will travel, including 61.4 million who will hit the road for the holiday period between June 27th and July 5th, slightly more than the 61.3 million drivers last year, despite higher prices. Gas prices are at a 4-year high, and domestic flights to popular destinations such as Chicago and Denver are 5% costlier than they were last year. For many Americans, traveling the week of July 4th is a tradition, Vice President of AAA Travel, Stacy Barber, said in a June 17 news release. The 9-day travel forecast includes travelers who are vacationing all week and people just getting away for the long holiday weekend. While the overall number of Independence Day travelers appears to be plateauing, we're still expecting record volumes this year. This year's Independence Day also is America's sesquicentennial, with major celebrations hosted across the country. Here's what travelers should know about the July 4th weekend. Top destinations. Domestic travelers will head to major U.S. cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston to attend festivities celebrating July 4th and America's 250th birthday, AAA said. Many will also go to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to visit theme parks and embark on cruises. With the Alaska cruise season in full swing, Seattle, Anchorage, and Fairbanks are also popular domestic destinations for the holiday. European destinations of Rome, Dublin, Paris, and London top the list for international travelers. Many also will head north to Vancouver and Calgary, according to AAA. Best driving times. Travelers should be on the road in the morning to avoid the worst congestion, transportation data and insights from INRIX said. Monday, June 29th and Tuesday, June 30th are expected to have the least traffic. Worst driving times. According to INRIX, the heaviest traffic is expected on the weekend of July 4th, starting as early as Thursday. There will also be peak congestion on June 27th, as travelers kick off the weekend vacations. Major city congestion? Well, let's see here. They have Atlanta, Los Angeles, Boston, New York, Denver, San Francisco, Houston, and Washington listed. So let's just take New York. Worst route? Jersey Shore to New York via the Garden State Parkway North. Worst day is July 5th. Worst time is 12:45 p.m. Estimated travel time is 1 hour and 55 minutes. Travel time increase is 90%. So folks, if you're driving, be prepared for delays.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes